I'm Ariel Azor, host of Right This Way, and today we're going to talk about socialism. Now, what we're seeing a lot from the current Democrats running for president in 2020 and at the Democratic debates, socialist ideas. I think what we're going to see more and more of is these people trying to compete with Bernie. So Bernie was very close in the 2016 election to winning the nomination for the Democratic Party, which is huge because he's not a Democrat. He's a socialist. Socialists believe that the government should take all your money. And of course, they don't say that. If they said that, nobody would want to be a socialist. What they say, their selling point, is that you deserve it. You've earned it. Wait, what? You've earned somebody else's money? They earned it, right? It's not how they present it. They present it in a really nice, really appealing package. It was really interesting to do all this research and see these candidates get up on stage and they propose these crazy ideas with absolutely no regard for whether or not somebody's going to fact check them. They say, well, this is my plan. I'm going to use this money and give all this money here. And then somebody asks them, well, where's that money coming from? And how much money would that be? And they can't answer those simple questions because their proposals are just ideas. They're just made up fantasyland ideas of what they think young voters want to hear. And what's unfortunate is that they're right about a part of that. And the part of that they're right about is when they cater to the sort of helpless mentality of some younger people. See, the liberals have convinced young people of all races, of all genders, they have convinced them that they are oppressed, that there is something putting them down, something stopping them from success, whether it be their skin color, like I said, their gender, their familial upbringing, if they had one or two parents in the house. They're constantly telling them they're oppressed. Oh, all your problems can be blamed on this. It's not your fault. And that's one thing to say that, yes, maybe it was more difficult than for some other kids for somebody to grow up and to be able to get their homework done on time. And maybe they didn't have as much time to study as they wanted to because they had to work a job to help pay for their phone bill or their car insurance or something like that. It's obvious that there's going to be these differences between young people and old people. And a lot of times that does come with money. But we've told them that they cannot be successful. That's the problem here, is we've said, you can't be successful, but don't worry about it. We'll help you. Well, what about the American dream? What about the fact that I want to help myself? Oh, no. You don't help yourself. We'll do it. We'll take care of it. Here, just give us everything you own, and we'll take care of it. We'll just make sure everybody's equal. And they've taught them to hate the rich. And I think that's the worst problem. And I think the word I should use maybe is the successful. And I mean, obviously we can all define successful differently. Some people may not define it as being very wealthy, probably a good thing. But you can define successful in many ways. And a good picture of successful for most of the population is probably having, enough money to just not have to worry about money ever, to have a family, to have kids, to have, like 8 dogs or like 12 cats if you like cats, all those things. It's that just like level of comfort, never having to worry about anything, not having to worry about any of these issues that you might have faced as a kid. But that's the American dream right there, is when somebody starts out in not absolute poverty or anything, but when somebody starts out at a lower point than what they end up at, right? So they say, well, this childhood, that's not what I want for my kids. That's not what I want for my family. And so they work really hard and they become really successful. And not everyone who works hard becomes successful, but everybody who is successful works hard. And now, obviously, you can take that into different extreme scenarios with like somebody who wins the lottery. No, they probably didn't work very hard to win the lottery. But at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily define that as success. They have a bunch of money. They don't really get it all at once like they think they do. A lot of people don't know how to spend that money, how to manage it properly, so they pretty much lose it within the first couple years. The taxes they have to pay on it are so high, and again, they're not used to that because they come from a much lower income. So all of those things, I wouldn't necessarily consider that to be successful. So don't tear apart that argument. If you're going to be successful, you absolutely have to work hard. Nothing is free. And that's sort of what this socialist idea wants to tell you about free college, about raising our minimum wage, right? Things like that is they want to tell you, yeah, it's just going to make everybody equal. It's just more fair. Having burgers at McDonald's is a minimum wage job. It can't support a family because it's not meant to. Let's go back to the free college and talk about that a little bit more for a second. One of the biggest things about this is that the Democrats are proposing it on the debate stage. They're proposing it on their Twitters and they're talking about it, and there's like all this buzz about it. And it's like we have all these millennials who are hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And we have young people my age, Gen Z, right now going through college, trying to figure out how to pay for it, wondering if it's worth it. So to a lot of like a very large group of people, especially new voters, that's kind of where I'm going with this, is I think that's who they're trying to target, is young voters who did not vote in the last election. And with this, because it's such a big thing they talk about. And it was very hard to find people who actually thought free college was plausible, because the money has to come from somewhere. That's what everybody said. Every educated person who is thinking through this said, well, where's that money going to come from? And do we want to pay for that? No, that's what every conclusion was for the most part. Obviously, there are exceptions. I'm sure there's some economists who really think that free college is an option, that it's possible. Yes, it happened in England, in Europe, Germany, not just England. Yes, it happened, but it's not the same. We would lose college sports. They would be absolutely nothing. Like they have almost no sports at all. Sports are huge money makers too. So they would be government funded schools. It would be an extension of high school. And that would make it lose its value, right? If it's provided for free, it's no longer higher education that sets you apart from others because it's free. Everyone has access to it. A high school diploma isn't really impressive to an employer or to, well, I guess it's not impressive to a college. They all expect you to have completed those things. You can't get into college if you haven't completed high school. And you can't even get most jobs if you haven't completed high school. You have to have a GED. But you don't have to have a college degree. And that's the thing, is we actually have more people with college degrees that don't need them. Right? We're saying, well, we need to increase college attendance, and we don't need to increase it. We've been telling people for the last 10, 15, 20 years, you have to go to college, you have to go to college. And in reality, it's not right for everyone. We're seeing nearly 50% of college students not finishing within 6 years of starting college. And that's not to say that they don't finish eventually, but 50%, that's a huge number. The problem here isn't necessarily cost. And while cost is definitely a factor, it would be naive to say it isn't. It's not the sole factor. They're saying, well, is this price worth it? Is it going to pay off in the end, right? Because that's a big deal to say, well, I'm 3 years into college and I'm just going to quit now and I have to pay off all those debts and I won't come out of it with a college degree. My money's a little less because it's only 3 years instead of 4, but now I have no degree and I spent 3 years wasting my time. And it's very easy for us to want to say, well, yeah, free college, that would be great. But free college isn't just free college. It's not going to be the same thing. You won't end up with what we have right now just for free. It literally will not be that way. And that's what's great about American universities is we have so many options. That's why so many people want to come to American universities from other countries all the time. They want to be here because our universities are great, because they're not free. But in general, people are willing to pay for good quality things. That's why we have it. And now the reason college prices have increased so much is because we have such high attendance rates. People are saying, well, I have to go. I'm going to go. No, I mean, the debt sucks, but I've got to go. Well, if people stopped going to college and their attendance rates plummeted, the prices would go down too, right? The demand is so high. They raise their prices as high as they can possibly raise them and have people still committing to go there. So if we had less people going, the prices would decline because they want more people. They want to draw people in. But people aren't saying no to the cost, and that's the problem. And I know it's very difficult to be the generation that changes that because you're stuck with a lot of people without college degrees. But we have to realize at some point, not that many people need these degrees. Another problem with making these things free is that we're not going to work as hard for something that isn't costing us money. Socialism isn't really about making everybody equal. Because at the end of the day, you're never going to be equal. Nobody can ever possibly make that many people completely equal. You'd have to have them living in the same houses. You'd have to be giving them the same clothes to wear. They'd have to have the same jobs, which doesn't make sense because not everybody can have the same job. They require different skill sets. So everybody would have to have the same education, but then we would either be educated for a very, very long period of time to learn all of these skills, and it would take forever to get us into the workforce, or we wouldn't be educated enough and we wouldn't be able to do our jobs properly. I know that basic socialism and the idea of free college is a far stretch from what I just mentioned, but socialism, the entire goal is to reach that eventually, right? It's constant equality. Equality. We need equality. Give us equality. And it creates this generation of super, super entitled young people who don't want to work for anything because they tell us, you don't have to work. We're just going to get it for you. You just trust us with everything you own and we'll take care of it. But you can't rely on the government to do that for you. Even if you could, do you want to? They want to convince you the American dream is dead. And I think what I've realized the last couple years in school, the American dream is dead. And they don't say it so blatantly, but it's kind of the message that they're trying to get across. And I have a huge problem with this because saying that the American dream is dead, the American dream is coming to America from another country or from, already being from here, but from poverty or just a lower class family, something like that. And they say, you can't have that anymore. You will never get out of that. It's like the caste system in India. This country is so developed. You absolutely cannot tell me that we follow a caste system. And I know that's not the word they use and they don't portray it like that. But at the end of the day, if you are saying you are born into a certain family, a certain class, you are born into that, you will never get out of it because of the other classes. That sounds exactly like the caste system to me. You cannot leave it. Wherever you are born into, whatever family you are born into, that is the occupation you must have, that is the person you must marry. You can't leave it. And I think that's insane. I think it's insane to tell young people that because you're telling them from the very, very beginning that they're helpless. You're telling them that they will never be successful, that they cannot be successful. And you make them hate successful people. And successful people are very important to society, just like poor people are. And of course, nobody wants to be the poor people and everybody wants to say, oh, well, we feel bad for them, we should help them. But that's what the wealthy are for. They're wealthy enough that they're able to help poor people, that they're able to donate to charity, be philanthropists. That's what that's for. Wealthy people are great for the economy. Wealthy people often create jobs through whatever made them wealthy. They're often big companies, things like that. It's important. It's important to society, and you cannot have a society without it. No matter what they tell you about how everybody can be equal, nobody will ever be equal. There's always going to be poor people. It's crazy that we don't look at Venezuela. As young people, we don't look at Venezuela and say, socialism has failed. They honestly believe Venezuela isn't socialist. How? They've been told, oh, that's not really socialism, so don't worry about that. anytime they want to ask a question, anytime they want to question something that they're being told by a teacher or a professor, it's just sort of shot down. It's like, oh, don't worry about that. We're being very ignorant. And I think that's really dangerous. Don't buy into the idea of free things. We're so entitled as a generation. We are so used to getting what we want and just being handed things. When you're handed something and you don't have to work hard for it, you don't learn the value of it. If you don't have any hard work or time, blood, sweat, tears invested in something, it loses its value. It's not important to you. It doesn't matter if you lose it. If it's just handed to you, oh well, whatever. It wasn't that important. It wasn't something I worked hard to get. So when it goes away, it's like, oh, well, okay. But this is a really horrible mindset for young people to have. We have to be the next generation of greatness, of thinkers, of politicians, of people in the workforce. We have to be that. And we're learning so much to be exactly the opposite. We're learning to rely on the government. And that's really, really dangerous. Even if you like socialism, if you just love the idea of free college and nothing I've said has convinced you otherwise or could convince you otherwise, you have to consider, who do you want to rely on? Do you want to rely on yourself, where you can be in control and where you can say, enough is enough. If, I'm not happy in this job, I'm going to go get another one and I'm going to work my butt off and I'm going to make a lot of money one day, or I'm going to save up my money and I'm going to buy that car I always really wanted, but I'm going to be smart with my money so I can do that and then still not have to worry about it, right? Don't you want that instead of the government saying, well, here, you get $1,000 a month and you can spend it however you like, but that's all you get. Well, you just went and worked, 80-hour work week, and you're getting $1,000 a month from the government because they take all your money. That's how socialism works. And I think so many people don't understand, so many young people do not understand that because it's not what we're told. We're just sort of told to brush off socialism and, oh, that's not a good example of socialism. Don't worry about that. Here's what socialism does, and it's really great. No. You can't just believe that. You have to think for yourself. Thank you for listening. You can follow me on Instagram at right.this.way. You can also leave a review on Apple Podcasts, or you can give me a thumbs up on YouTube.